On a hill in Harrison County stands an old abandoned house. It was once a pretty white house with a large yard, and in the summer, even to this day, it is surrounded by many kinds of flowers. This house has been empty for many decades now, but for several years after it was abandoned, it was not a spooky-looking place that anyone would have been afraid of. However, for some reason, none of the families who bought the house would live there for more than a month in spite of its beautiful location. Some people believe the old house is haunted, and that is the reason it remained vacant. This legend was probably strengthened one rainy night when Lee Marion, a traveling salesman, was passing through the section. He had a flat tire just down the road from the house. Seeing a light in the window, he decided to ask the people who lived there if he could use their telephone to call a repair station. A very beautiful woman opened the door. Her hair was golden blonde and waved down her back. Her eyes were as blue as the sky on a bright spring day. Indeed, the man was enchanted by her charms. She was joined at the door by 3 small children, bright-eyed and much like their mother. The salesman called a repair shop and found out that a bridge had been washed away and no one could come to fix the tire until the next morning. When Lee explained where he was, the man did not believe him, that a woman and 3 children were in the house. He told the salesman to get away from the place as soon as possible, to sleep in his car if he had to. Lee couldn't understand this because the woman treated him so nicely. She offered him a cup of coffee and told him he could spend the night in her house, and he accepted her hospitality. He had a very comfortable night until about 12:30, when he heard the children screaming. At first he thought they were having youthful nightmares and would soon go back to sleep, but the screaming persisted, and he decided the woman could use some help in getting the youngsters quieted. When he got downstairs, he was amazed at what he saw. It was the same beautiful woman he had first encountered just a few hours before, but she looked entirely different. Thin, rough, and almost ugly, her once beautiful bright eyes were darkened and glassy with a look of torture. The children, now wearing ragged clothing, were not even clean, and they were crying from hunger. Lee spoke to the woman and asked her why she didn't feed the youngsters, but she kept on screaming at them and begging them not to cry, as though she hadn't heard him speak to her at all. He walked over and touched her arm, trying to keep her from the children. When he touched her flesh, he found it was stiff and cold, as if in death. Could it be that all of them were dead? Was this an apparition? Lee used all his strength in trying to keep her from harming her offspring, but nothing he did seemed to stop her. Finally, she led the little ones out the back door. Lee followed them, sorry for the children and curious. He saw the woman line them up according to their ages. She took the smallest, who was about 2 years old, and led him by the neck to the well. Lee rushed to her, but it was too late. She had murdered the little boy, once bright-eyed and happy. Lee turned to the other children, but with all his power he could not move them from their positions. The woman took the next child, who was about 4, and proceeded to do the same with her. The 5-year-old was next. After this, she knelt by the well and began praying to God to look after her beautiful children, that she loved them so, but she had no money and could not bear to see them tortured by starvation. The woman then rushed into the house and cut her wrists. She died on the kitchen floor. Lee went upstairs to get a blanket to lay over her, but when he returned, the body had disappeared. He looked everywhere, but it was gone. There was only the stillness of the early morning and the sun coming through the window. When the man from the service station finally came that morning, he was surprised to find Lee in the house. He said the house was haunted, that everyone who moved into it heard the voices of children screaming as if they were in pain. Lee asked about the lovely woman, but the repairman didn't seem to know anything about any woman living in the house with 3 children. Lee did not tell the man about what he had seen, but he felt he had learned the real story behind the haunted house, and perhaps he had.